Hello, everyone. Welcome to the last and final week of the Gym Owner Success Network Fitness Business Bootcamp. Can you believe that we're already at our last session? Once again, thank you so much, so much, so much for taking time out of your day, your schedule, your business to be able to come into our Facebook group and to support myself as well as so many others. So, this one is dedicated to each and every one of you. I hope that throughout these past 5 weeks, and also what I'm going to speak with you today about, that you are able to start to connect the dots. Because all of these things that we've discussed, from creating raving fans to our onboarding program, getting people into our personal training and studio programs, the list can truly go on and on. Each one of those does not work singularly. They only work if you end up putting the pieces of those together. If I were to sum up my biggest message across all of this, okay, it's that you have to be able to focus on both your team, all right, as well as yourself as the leader. You also need to make sure that you are absolutely excellent, all right, at customer service as well as customer experience, because there is that big paradigm shift from making sure that we're really focused on the experiences because they're more lasting. And then, of course, how well are you able to communicate with both your team and your members, and of course, your community as a whole? Throughout these past 5 weeks, and some of what I'm going to share with you today, I want you to now be in the mindset and the mind frame of saying, which of these areas that we've discussed do I need to take additional time to develop? What do I need to do as the leader? What do I need to do in order to be able to best help and serve my team? And at the same time, how can my members, as well as my team members, influence back to me what those decisions look like? And that's a little bit what I want to talk to you about today, is the importance of your role in this equation. So coming up with the curriculum early on, one of the topics was just about KPIs and going over numbers. And it was really difficult for me to come up with something that I would do to really capture your attention, because with both my personality and presenting style, I didn't think it would, I think it would come off more dry than I would ever like it to be. So I decided to make a little bit of a switch to this whole measuring what matters and calling this grading your successes and opportunities. And I hope that you're going to like this one, because this is an area that I spend a lot of time on, especially with myself, but also in helping other fitness pros out there as well. The term KPI has to be the most overused term in the entire fitness industry. Well, what are the KPIs? Well, what are the KPIs? Well, as a part of the KPIs, what do you think? Is it KPI, KPI, KPI? Is it truly a KPI when there are so many variables? Because if you think about it, the first letter K stands for key. So I like to think similar to the word priority. We took the term priority and it went from being one or two things to 12 different priorities. Well, I think we've done the same thing to KPIs, which is we've turned key into this long laundry list. Well, for me, a key performance indicator is probably three, four, five things. It might be department specific, but it can't get too muddy. So for us, it's things like net, total revenue, retention of your staff. I can go on and on, but I'm not going to do that, because that is not what I decided to do. So if you're here for a KPI talk, guess what? This isn't going to be that, but I do have something special in store for you today. When it comes to this topic of talking about measurables, the most important element of it is that if it's not measurable, it's not manageable. And it doesn't have to be quantitative for it to be measurable. Sometimes survey data can actually provide us some of the best qualitative data that we can use. We measure things so that we have marks, so that we know that we either need to decrease, increase, or maintain. Sometimes it's like our costs we may want to maintain or try to decrease, but then it could be things like revenue or penetration in our studio programs or whatever it might be. The one part to this is you have to think about what are some of those measurable elements, all right, that fall into both the qualitative and quantitative categories so that you can develop for your program and your business because they're essentially going to almost become your guide or your direction as you start to create this map. So let's talk about that. In our business, I'd have to say that the most important thing for you to do isn't about your product, isn't necessarily your people, isn't honestly the amount of members that you end up having. But before you can be successful in all those areas, it all starts with your strategy. Brent Darden, who I look up to as a mentor and somebody who I highly, highly respect in this industry, has taught me some great lessons about the importance of strategy, and it's something that I've held very close to the chest in my own work and also in the message that I provide other people. So, with strategy, there's a couple pieces to it that I share with everyone here, and I challenge you in this because sometimes we talk a big game, but sometimes we don't perform as well as we'd like to. So, you should always have a strategy for what you're trying to accomplish. So we can almost call this like our annual strategy. We want to get to X, we want to be able to open this many places or have this amount of members, keep our costs at this level, we want EBITDA to be this. Those are great things. But you also have to start to break that down a little bit more. And I'm somebody who follows a quarterly strategy plan. So each quarter, I develop a plan. So it's usually about 30 to 45 days before the following quarter. So, we just are getting ready to get into October, our fourth and final quarter of the year. So at the beginning of September, late August, I'm working on what my plan's going to be for Q4. Well, why do I wait that long to really dive deep into my Q4 is there are a lot of variables and intangibles that may occur in that time period. And if I wanted to try to think about what I thought about maybe, at the beginning of the year, some of it may actually be, worthwhile. Some of it may not even be something that we're doing anymore. But I know that if I have that point, all right, and I make a real big mark in my schedule, I usually block out about 2 to 3 days for my own self strategy, and then I start to bring in my team members as well. But that allows me to really think in the now and the present rather than trying to always just future forecast. So I have this acronym that I typically follow, and this first element of this is the plan and the strategy. So when we think about trying to grade our successes and the measurables and what we need to do to accomplish is, it all starts with how you create your plan. In these past 5 weeks, what I'm sharing with you today, we've covered such a vast, wide range of topics. I don't expect you to try to be going after each and every area. I want you to think about, all right, some of the things that he discussed, and perhaps it's not even one of the things that I discussed in this sort of curriculum that we've put together, but what are the areas that we need to develop a plan for? When you're coming up with your plan, take the time to just have a whiteboard session. So, what is a whiteboard session to me? A whiteboard session to me is I'll typically write in the middle of the board whatever it is. Maybe right now it's about just getting the message out to our new members about some of our programs. So I would maybe put earn your stripes really big, and then I would, put my goal of more members. From there, I would create it as a spider web. I'd start to think about how am I going to market it? How am I going to get my coaches involved? What does my front desk team need to know? What does my membership team need to know? What is my role in this equation? That's how I start to develop that plan. Why do I like to whiteboard it rather than just type it in my notes or maybe write it in a notepad? I like to see it. Similar to one of my very first slides here about connecting the dots, it's on me as the leader, you the owner, you the manager, whatever your role is to be able to connect all those dots. If you were to ask me about what my role is over here at the Ford Athletic Club, I tell everyone I'm the glue. I'm the glue to the operation to make sure that we are all in sync, we are cohesive, and that we're all As you know, my reference, rowing in the right direction. And it's my goal for you to be able to do that same thing, and it starts with your plan. As the follow up with that, I want you to think about your execution. All right, so that's the second one in my little acronym here. Okay, when it comes time to execute, all right, and I'm not even getting to the part where it's actually happening within your club, but what is the sort of pre execution routine? Think about this as you're getting ready to go into the pitch for your soccer match. And you might have a pre-game routine where you like to eat a certain meal. You always put your left, sock and shin guard and boot on before you end up doing your right, whatever that might be. I want you to think about, all right, what do we have to do in order to then, when we execute, be successful? I'm big on habits and behaviors, and I think it can be a key element. It becomes a little bit of a trigger for you. And then once it come time to be able to execute, that's where you want to use some of those KPIs, but really those qualitative and quantitative measures that will allow you to determine whether this is a success or an opportunity. You'll never see me speak in failures, all right? It's always about successes and opportunities for you to be able to grow because we're always going to be learning and we're always going to be moving in a forward direction. Because, like they say, if you're going to fall, just make sure you fall forward. And then the last one, so we have plan, we have execute, and then we have follow up and follow through. It's a random one, it's just PEF, but all of my team knows this. Anybody who's ever worked for me in the past knows how important plan, execute, and follow up and follow through are. So as you're moving through, you've worked on your strategy, you have your plan, you've executed. There now has to be a time that you're going back to what you strategized and put together, and then grade what went well, what didn't go as well, and what became an opportunity for you. You want to get the rest of your team involved when you go through this type of sort of after action report, right? So if it's a new training program that you're implementing, or maybe it's a new marketing campaign, you want to have constituents from each of your departments, even if you're a small group of, 3 to 5, or if you're a company that has, 500 people. That allows each of you to be able to come together to be able to empower each person to have a voice and also both influence and impact how you're going to be able to proceed from there. This whole process is cyclical. You're constantly doing this. It can be something so simple as you change your phone script at the front desk. You should have an idea of how you're going to plan for it, execute it, and follow up. It could be something like a new smoothie, or it could be something so dynamic as you're launching your first ever 6 or 8 week transformation challenge. It doesn't matter how big or how small it is. If you can measure it, it matters. And everything that we do is measurable in order to be able to best lead us and guide us for us to be successful. So let's take a quick pulse check. You probably came here thinking I was going to talk a little bit about numbers, and I decided to completely change your direction because I want this to be about you and your business. I've given you sort of like raving fan ideas, how to get people into studios and programs. We've gone into member onboarding, we've talked technology. But what we haven't really done here is I haven't really came at you. And that's what I want to do through the rest of this is really approach you, the leader, you, the person, you, the fitness professional, and challenge you in different areas. So as you sort of sit there and check your pulse, I want you to say, what are these things that I need to be doing and how you specifically, all right, play one of the most important roles within your organization. So to me, this is your chance and your opportunity to look at the doors that you have in front of you. Maybe it's this one door or this second door or this third door. Is it your social media and the way that you're marketing? Is it the way that your pricing is currently structured? Are you falling short in the way that you're able to build your team and your camaraderie and you're facing challenges with staff retention? There are so many areas that you can end up thinking about these doors and these opportunities that are in front of you. And I just want to pause and say to you, off the top of your head right now, because there's no doubt that as I'm speaking, you're already thinking of what your reply would be. I want you to write down what are those one, two, or three things that you've said, you know what? This is where I need to be investing right now. I've invested all my time in coming to these webinars. I need to make sure that I start putting together a plan for this. I'm going to give you 20 seconds to write it. So as you're wrapping up, it's important that I share with you some of mine because I'm in the thick of it. We literally just cut our ribbon to our gym on Tuesday. Thank you, thank you. I appreciate that. And I tried to think, well, what are my current opportunities? I think the first thing is how I can best time manage myself because right now a lot of it's becoming, Matt, can you help me? Matt, can you help me? Matt, can you help me? And I need to be able to establish a little bit more of a barrier or empower the team to maybe try to figure out the answer first before coming to me. And then the second piece is more of a personal note, but making sure that I hit the off button once I come home so that I can focus on being with my friends and my family. So that's just some examples for me. I'm sure that you have some you're going to end up working on, but let's keep this thing going. Everything starts with you. I believe that you are the center point, right? I'll try to find it right there. All right. That's exactly who this starts with is you become the captain. All right. There's movies that you can think of where there's that superhero. Um, there's stories of everything, right? It doesn't have to be maybe the biggest, boldest, whatever person, but you're the person that people go towards and look at for help and direction. All right. Many of you in here, from what I've seen in the chats, are you're either your general managers, your owners, your operators. Your team looks up to you no matter what you think or may feel at certain times. But I know through my experience and in sharing with other leaders who are out there that the best thing that you can do is to make investments in yourself. The fact that you're here and watching this, all right, that's a deposit in your growth and your development to be the best leader that you can be. I know that in order to be successful, there has to be a point of where you have to be selfish in order to be selfless. And what I mean by that is you need to spend time on developing yourself. And this could be physically, this could be, your knowledge, your skills, your abilities, your emotional tool bank, your spiritual tool bank, whatever it is. The more that you put that work into you, it will in turn, all right, become selfless and to be able to help all those other people. And that's what we're going to dive into a little bit here. So imagine being able to have the leadership ability of Simon Sinek, who wrote Start With Why, Leaders Eat Last, as well as others. Imagine being able to be entrepreneurial like Sarah Blakely and Jesse Itzler and their successes. Simone Biles and the mental toughness that she's been able to grow and develop throughout her career as an Olympian, as a gymnast. Cristiano Ronaldo, his physical prowess, okay, and be able to have a body like him and talent like him. You have the ability for all of those. You might not be a soccer phenom. You might not be a billionaire like Sarah Blakely. You may never write a book like Simon Sinek. But the person that is going to be able to lead you to your greatest success is the one you look at in the mirror. And I've been talking about this for probably, I want to say like 4 or 5 years now in my presentations, but it's this idea and concept of the mirror talk. Sometimes the best coaching and conversations or direction that we ever need, we're quick to give it to others, but oftentimes we have to look in the mirror and give it to ourselves. So as you wrote during that slide where all those doors were and those opportunities, there's not a doubt in my mind that if I were to ask you why one of those areas might have fallen short, your answer should directly involve what your role has been in each of those as an area of opportunity or growth. Remember, it gets lonely at the top, while at the same time, we are charged with making sure that we help our teams to be successful. If our team fails, I fail. If anybody on that team fails, I fail. Because that's what you take on as a leader, as an owner, as an operator, as a manager. So as you think about each of these, and I threw out all those quick people, and that was the point, which is what are your areas now, right? We just talked about what your business areas of growth and opportunities are, but what are yours? Do you need to take more time for yourself? Do you need to be more on the floor? Do you need to start to build your knowledge in a certain area, but you're expecting others, but you might not be able to coach them in the way that you know you can? Perhaps you used to be really, really good, but recently you've started to backburn a couple of things, or things that used to never get unnoticed now go unnoticed for you. You're the difference. You are the catalyst for your team, and there's no doubt that you can all make it possible, but it all starts right here and right here. You have this get shit done mentality. There are no excuses as leaders. There's no excuses as entrepreneurs. There's no excuses when you're on a team. There is no finger pointing, right? They say that if you point your finger, there's three pointing right back at you. It falls on you to make sure that you're getting shit done. Going back early on, right? Everything always ties together in my presentations, I promise. But you have to have a strategy. You need that guide. I talked about that reference before, that imagine not being able to have your compass to steer you in the direction you need to go. I cannot exaggerate and emphasize this component enough. All right? Be the difference. Be the leader you know you can. Be the leader that you would look up to. And if it's an area of opportunity and you feel as though you've fallen short, it's okay. All right? But recognize those doors and burst those doors down. The power is in your hands. The power is in your brain. All right? The power is in your voice and the way that you communicate. Pull those pieces together, your body language. Those are all going to be influential with your team, with your members. That's what I want you to grade. What are your biggest successes and opportunities along with your business? That's this idea. That is that measurable that I was talking about when we first got this thing kicked off. However, you have to be able to know what it is in order for you to be able to manage it. Okay? So let's pause real quick. I want you to reflect. In my career, there's times that I have definitely fallen short, that I've handled things in a way that perhaps in my best self, I wouldn't have handled it that way. While at the same time, I've done some of the most incredible things to be able to impact and influence my team, our members, and all these other areas. We're very quick to be hard on ourselves about the maybe 10% or maybe even less than that where we've fallen short, but we don't take the time to think about that 90% or even more than that. I want you to get into a new habit, a new behavior for you to end every single day with, which is I want you to write down from 1 to 5 or 1 to 10, if you want to use, F as a failure or A, whatever it is. I don't like the failure thing, so I would just do the numbers. But I want you to reflect on how well you performed each day. You're thinking I'm crazy, but this is something that I learned early on from someone that I had read a book about, and it's helped me tremendously, which is I grade myself from 1 to 10 on how well I performed, how strong of a leader was I. And I just do this for work. I don't bring my personal life into this, and I write it in my planner. So I might write down that I was an 8. So I write down that I was an 8, and I'll write, what are the reasons why I wasn't a 10 that day? And oftentimes, I'll tell you, I usually am grading myself a 9 unless I have an absolutely stellar day. And ever since I started using this grading system to reflect upon my areas of opportunity growth, but also looking at my successes, I've actually never marked myself below a 7. And on those days that I've marked myself a 7, it's typically because I didn't exercise, I might not have slept well, or I had to rush and I didn't create that plan. Those are all of my elements, and what I've also learned from many, many successful gym owners, operators, but also, world-renowned entrepreneurs, world-class performers, athletes, and so on. So, for one, don't just focus on your challenges and don't say that you failed. You're learning. Everything becomes an opportunity for growth and an opportunity for learning. Okay? But those end of day reflections, I do this usually, I probably mark off about 15 or 20 minutes before I leave my day. I'll try to wrap up whatever my last email is. I push it to the side. I go through my end of day routine, and then I close that laptop and I go home. And then I go from uh, general manager and gym operator to husband, dad, dog dad. Your influence is probably the most powerful thing that you have. 9 out of 10 people that are watching this webinar right now, if I asked why they do what they do, it's because they wanted to make a positive influence and impact on others, or they went through their own experience or story. This influence word has become a little bit saturated due to social media, right? We are referred to as influencers. Um, and in all honesty, I hate it. I hate the idea of the influencer because to me, if you're a person of influence, it should be associated with something that's going to help people or to grow people, not to sometimes tear people down or have potentially an adverse impact on others. So that's where influence is powerful, but it's powerful in almost a negative direction or that can retract you. All these words, all right, this is a great Google influences power sort of Google search. But if you think about all of these in the background, they all have a role in what it is that we do in our day to day. Sort of like your speech, your behaviors, right? The respect, sort of authority, individual positions, motivations, the words that we use. They all become influence and that becomes powerful. So that if you think of how you are as a leader, your next role is not just about how strong you can be. Because we've already covered really quickly in this conversation, we've talked about sort of your areas of the importance of your plan, then your areas of opportunities for your growth in your business. Then I just went after you for a little bit. And now we have to think about your team. Your team is one of your greatest responsibilities. And they need you to be at your best as well. All right. They, in the same way that you're grading them and their success, should be doing the same exact thing for you. We're very fortunate to be able to work in an industry that helps lift people up rather than tear them down. We have a very unique opportunity to change lives. What really got me into the fitness industry was the knowledge gap. I hope to educate as many people as I can about the importance of health, fitness, wellness, mental toughness, and so on. My goal is to be able to just help people to live happier, healthy, and more prosperous lives. That statement that I just shared with you becomes my guiding light every single day. So whether it's talking to one of our members or one of my team members, or even somebody that I might run into at the grocery store or in my favorite coffee shop, I want to portray that to others. You have to know who you are as a person and a leader, and then make sure that you look at your team as a group, but also as individuals in the way that you lead them. Each person has a different identity. Each person has something that is important to them. So once again, if you haven't, because this is one of my challenges, if you haven't sat down, one-on-one with each of your team members to get to know them a little bit more, to reconnect with them. I don't care if you're really, really good friends with them. You probably haven't sat down to just say, Let's do our own pulse check together. I want to hear about you. What can I do to best support you in being successful? And see where that conversation goes. I know that when I've had former managers who have sat down just to sort of do like a quick check with me, it's actually been one of the most important and influential things that I could have had happened in my career because it gave me something that you cannot put a value on, which was it showed to me that they valued me not just as the employee, but as the person. What's nice about having these conversations is it opens you up to those heartstrings, right? We talk about heartstrings with members, and heartstrings are commonly used when we're trying to sell people. Um, but I think it's important that you understand the heartstrings of your team so that you know what's important to them, what their triggers may be. It'll help with your sort of retention. It'll help with their performance. It'll help with your performance. And this doesn't have to be done like, quarterly reviews or annual reviews. I shared this before. I hate reviews. You should never have to create a time for you to be able to have feedback with your team. It should always end up feeling natural. Almost in a similar element of the whole surprise and delight at random times, this should feel in that same exact way. I kind of get a kick out of this because when I first started doing these, like just check ins with people, and I would say, hey, I want to connect with you, at the end of your day for 20 minutes, everybody's first reaction was, am I getting fired? And then my response would always be, well, did you do something that I should fire you for? And the answer was usually no. But they once again saw that I wanted to take the time out of all the things that I was doing to really make sure that they were viewed as not just somebody on our team, but as an influencer on this team that is important and also just to make sure that everybody is good. This past year and a half, and I don't always like referring back to it, but we've gone through a lot. We've gone through a lot, a lot, a lot. So start having some of these conversations. Maybe it's difficult for you to be able to have these conversations. Good. All right. They're going to get better. But it starts with you because that person might not raise their hand to have that conversation. But if you open your door, they're going to end up coming in and they're going to appreciate you for it. I am a little bit of a human library, and I haven't thrown too many out here throughout this business boot camp. But this book, for this principle that I'm sharing with you, this was really important for me, which is a book by Kim Scott called Radical Candor. Radical Candor teaches you about the importance of being able to build relationships with people prior to be able to expecting them to really look at you as a leader or to just take commands or direction from you without really establishing that foundation. Envision it as you trying to tell somebody what to do a week into their job, but you don't really know much about that person. By being able to learn how to effectively communicate with your team and to connect with your team, that in turn will help you as the leader, but also them in their performance as well as satisfaction. So go to Amazon. I think it's probably anywhere between, I'm going to guess, 14 and 20 bucks. But if it's something that you're interested in, I'm telling you, read this book. It will have a huge, huge difference in the way that you communicate with your team. And I think it's also going to teach you a lot about yourself. Well, I didn't get into the matrix of numbers today. There's there's a lot of other people who might be able to teach you about the numbers. I'm not here for numbers. I'm here for you. I'm here to share with you that I want you to be challenged in the way that you are going to be as a leader, as an entrepreneur, within your family, within your friendship group, whatever that is. Numbers don't lie, but every number tells a story. And there's usually a lot of layers to that story. And that's what you need to be able to read because it's not just that number that we see as far as revenue. Because when we look at revenues, there's a lot that goes into how that revenue got there, whether it's a good thing or a bad thing. If you look at the amount of people you go to your classes or your net, your expenses, uh, whatever it might be, each one of those tells that story. And it's on you to be able to know how you got to that position And it all starts with everything we discussed: your strategy, your plan, your execution, your follow through, your role in this. What are the areas of growth, how you're leading your team, and how you're able to influence other people. I find that the best way for you to hit and exceed your numbers is always to do everything with your passion. So, typically at the end of every presentation that I would give for probably like my first year or so, I always ended my last slide with a Zig Ziglar quote, which is, you can have everything in life you want if you just help enough others get what they want. And that aligns very much so with my passion, which is I hope to be able to educate and influence as many people to live that happier, healthier, and more prosperous life. This is something that, similar to my tattoos, is like a badge of honor to me in all that I do. I think to myself, is what I'm doing as a leader within my organization, with and for my team, guiding us in that direction? And if I can't with 100% certainty answer yes, then we don't do it. We might table it for a little bit and then revisit it. But I want you to think about, all right, you might not have paused and done this recently. And as a matter of fact, this is our last slide today. So if you haven't revisit your passion, why you do what you do, why you're so fortunate, in my opinion, to work in the best industry in the world, I want you to grab your favorite cup of coffee, your water, whatever it is, find a tranquil place out of your house, out of your office, and I want you to just think on it. Think on it for 15, 20, 30 minutes. And I assure you that that brief practice can be that catalyst for you and might be that fuel to keep your burning fire in your belly and in everything that you do so that you can help your team to in turn serve the most amount of people that you could possibly serve. You have all been absolutely incredible through this. It's actually, I thought I was going to be more excited to be done filming each of these, but I think I'm actually going to miss it. I don't think my wife's going to not mind being asked to go up into the bedroom while I film these in my office. But thank you so much. Thank you to the Gym Owner Success Network, everybody over at Clubwise. A special shout out right now to Joe, to Allison, to Crystal. You know who you are. Thank you so much for this. To all of you who have really been hitting up the chat and been reaching out to me. You've made this an exceptional 6 weeks, so kudos to each of you. And for all of those that maybe I have yet to connect with, I look forward to being able to meet with you. And if there's anything and everything, please feel free to just reach out to me. So, last thing, all right, which is you're awesome. I'm proud of you. Keep kicking ass and get shit done, all right? And I promise that I will be here for you. And I hope to meet all of you, whether it be virtual or in person, very, very soon. All right, everybody. Keep kicking ass. Have an awesome day.